Don't chase love. Be love. You didn't come here by accident. Maybe a part of you is searching for peace. If that's true, subscribe to Buddha Pray and stay with this video, because each day this place offers stories made just for your soul. Let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you started losing pieces of yourself, just trying to keep them close? Have you ever chased love, and the more you ran after it, the farther it seemed to run away? What if the love you were looking for was never outside of you at all? What if, instead of chasing love, you could become love? Today, I want to share a story with you. A story not just to touch your heart, but to awaken something deeper. A truth, a healing, a path back to your own light. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever wondered why they didn't stay, if you've ever begged the universe for just one more chance at love, don't scroll, don't leave. This might be the story your heart has been waiting for. In a small riverside town, there lived a woman named Claire. No one remembered her last name. To some, she was just the lady who sells tea by the docks. To others, she was the woman who waits. Claire had a son named Ben. Her husband, David, had left them when Ben was barely a year old. He left with promises that he would return, that he just needed time to find work in the city, that he would come back with money, with gifts, with a better life for all of them. But days became months, months became years, and David never came back. People in town stopped asking. They whispered. Some called her foolish, others pitied her, but Claire never explained herself. Every afternoon for 15 years, she sat quietly by the river, selling cups of sweet tea, looking out at the water, as if love might drift back to her on a boat one day. Her son Ben grew up watching this. He saw the way she folded the napkins, the way she always left one cup unserved, the way she smiled at everyone, even when they offered no smile in return. One evening, when he was 13, Ben asked her, "Mom, don't you feel sad that Dad never came back?" Claire looked at him with eyes that held both sorrow and softness. She said, "I'm not waiting for him to come back, Ben. I'm just learning how to love without needing to hold." Ben didn't fully understand then, but he never forgot those words. Years passed. Ben went to college, far from home. Claire kept sitting by the river, pouring tea, no longer for waiting, but out of something else, a quiet peace, a deep love. And then, one rainy morning, a man appeared by the dock, soaked, worn, eyes full of stories. It was David. He looked older, smaller somehow, as if the years had crushed him into pieces. He stood in front of Claire, hands shaking. He said, "I don't deserve anything, I needed to see you." Claire poured him a cup of tea, placed it in his hand. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply said, "This is green tea, your favorite." David broke down. He told her everything, how he had another family now, how he thought he'd forgotten her. But every time he saw green tea, he remembered the way she poured it, how she never begged, never called, but somehow she was always there. Claire didn't ask for explanations. She didn't ask why he left, why he stayed away, why now. She just listened, and when he was done, she said, "I never needed you to stay. I just needed to love in a way that didn't break me." And David, after all these years, understood something he never did before. That real love doesn't chase, it becomes. It waits without expectation. It gives without asking. It is presence. It is peace. That day, Claire didn't get a man back. She didn't get an apology that could erase time, but she gave him tea, and in doing so, she gave him that peace. In Buddhism, love is not something you chase, it is something you become. True love, the kind that heals and liberates, does not demand, it does not cling, it does not beg to be chosen. The Buddha spoke often about metta, loving kindness, a pure selfless love that flows from the heart like sunlight, asking for nothing in return. In the Metta Sutta, he taught, just as a mother protects her child, her only child, with her life, even so, one should cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. Claire's love, the kind she showed to David, was not weakness. It was strength. It was metta in motion. It was compassion without condition, care without ownership. In the modern world, we are told that love must be earned, that we must prove ourselves, that we must chase, impress, sacrifice, even lose ourselves to be loved back. But the Dharma says otherwise. It teaches that clinging leads to suffering, that attachment to outcomes, he must stay, she must love me, is the source of our pain. Love, in the Buddhist sense, is letting go. Not letting go of people, but letting go of control, letting go of the ego that says, I need them to be mine. What Claire did was not passive. She loved actively. She showed up. She raised her child. She poured tea with grace. She didn't stop loving. She just stopped needing love to look a certain way. This is what the Buddha called upekkha, equanimity, the ability to remain balanced, to love without falling into suffering, to give without demanding anything in return. Many of us confuse love with ownership. We say, you're mine. We feel we have rights over another's time, attention, emotions. But love is not a cage. It's a space we offer someone where they can be free and still feel safe. In the story, David left, but Claire didn't lose herself. She didn't wait in bitterness. She didn't let her pain turn into poison. She transformed her waiting into peace. She became love, not by force, but by choice. The Buddha also taught, attachment is the root of suffering, but compassion is the root of liberation. So if you are loving someone who is drifting away, if you are clinging to someone who has stopped holding on, maybe it's time to ask, are you chasing love or are you becoming love? Because once you become it, you no longer fear losing anyone. You know, what flows from your heart is real, and what's real never truly leaves. If you're still here, listening, then maybe something in this story touched you. Maybe it reminded you of someone you once loved, someone you still love, someone you're holding on to, or maybe someone you've already let go of but never truly released in your heart. Maybe you've been chasing someone, waiting for their message, hoping for their return. Or maybe you've been chasing love itself, believing that only when someone chooses you will you finally feel complete. But let me tell you something, with all the softness and truth I can offer, you don't need to chase love. You are love. You don't need someone to complete you. You were born whole. You don't need to beg to be seen. You only need to see yourself, clearly, gently, fully. The world will try to convince you that your value lies in how others treat you, that your worth is defined by who stays and who leaves. But the Dharma teaches us something very different. It teaches us that our value is already within us, unshaken, unchanging, unbreakable. So if someone walks away, let them. If someone can't see your heart, bless them silently and continue your path. You don't need to close your heart to protect yourself. You only need to open it in the right direction toward yourself, toward those who show up, toward the moment you are living right now. Because right now, you have a choice. You can keep waiting, begging, wishing, or you can choose peace. You can choose to become the love you were always searching for. Not everyone you love will stay. Not everyone will understand the depth of your heart. But your job is not to make them understand. Your job is to be love anyway, to be kindness, to be compassion, to be peace. And yes, it will hurt sometimes. Loving with your whole being is not without pain, but that pain is different. It's not the pain of emptiness. It's the pain of growth, of transformation, of becoming someone who no longer needs to chase love because they have become love itself. So today, I invite you to do something different. Instead of sending another message to someone who's gone quiet, send one to yourself. Instead of waiting for someone to come back to your own heart. Instead of searching for someone to fill the silence, sit in that silence and let it teach you something beautiful. Write yourself a letter, take yourself for a walk, look in the mirror and say, I am enough, I am love. I am already whole. And then, if someone does come into your life, you will not cling, you will not fear, you will not beg, because you will know that love is not what they bring to you, it's what already lives inside you. Claire didn't get her old life back. She didn't get a love story with a perfect ending, but she got something more sacred. She became free, she became love, and so can you. Right now, close your eyes and ask yourself, what would it look like if I stopped chasing love? What would it feel like if I just became it? You might be surprised by the answer, and when you're ready, come back here, leave a comment, tell me, who are you finally letting go of? Or what are you ready to become? Let's not just listen to stories, let's live them, let's embody them, because this world doesn't need more people chasing love, it needs more people being love.